Sharon's story began March 19, 1960. Her first crime was killing her husband. Her second murder 3 months later. The victim, the wife of her boyfriend. And as far as anybody knows, her last murder was in 1964 in Mexico. And then in 1969, Sharon Kinne escaped from a Mexican prison, never to be heard of again. She was on every cover of all the old police detectives and Police Gazette and all of those. And it was a sensational case that ran for many years. We have with us now Colonel William Morton, Miriam Chief of Police Jim Browning, and Captain Carl Foster. And they were the investigating officers in this case, and it's going to be interesting to talk to you guys and see what you still remember. What do you remember about this? Do you remember if it was last week?
Is my mic on?
Yeah, just go ahead. You're all right.
Well, I remember it very well. One of our cars got a call over to this address at 1709 East 26th Street Terrace. At that time, I was just outside the Independence city limits to make investigation of a heart attack at that location. So the car responded over, which was Sergeant Ed Leahy, and I was in my car. I heard that call, so I run the call. And when I got over there, Sergeant Leahy was coming out the door, and I said, "What do you got?" And he said, "There's shooting in the bedroom." I went inside, and Sharon Kinne was there, and she directed me to the bedroom. And as I went in the bedroom, I saw the victim lying on the bed, facing the wall. He was bleeding, and the pistol was laying on the bed. So I asked her what happened, and she said she was in the bathroom getting ready to go out to a church dinner, and she heard her daughter say, "Daddy, how's this thing work?" And then she heard a shot, and she said she ran in the bedroom, and that's discovered her husband. But as ironically, she called the call in as a heart attack.
Okay, so you got there.
Yes.
And what do you find?
Well, we find him lying in the bed.
Did you just assume this is what happened?
Well, trying to investigate what happened, she said that the daughter had shot her. Her little daughter, 2.5 years old.
And you bought that?
Well, we bought it that time. We determined that it took a 3.5-pound pull to pull the trigger on that gun, and we had a little girl handle the gun, and she could have done that. So we kind of bought off on that. The gun that was found there was very oily, and they couldn't get any fingerprints off of it. And at that time, Herman Davis was handling the crime scene, and he didn't want to run a paraffin test on the little girl. Didn't want to run a paraffin test on Sharon because Herman doesn't. He thinks that test's unreliable, so it doesn't run. So we did buy off on it at that time.
For how long?
Well, she got involved about 67 days later, or 69 days later, with killing Patricia Jones.
Okay, yeah, but if this was all that she had done, she'd have been free. She'd have gotten away.
She would have got away from that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you guys said, yeah, that's what happened, and
we bought it off.
And away we go.
That's right.
This is Colonel William Morton, and that was, what, 30 years ago?
It was March 19th, 1960.
The Miriam Chief of Police, Jim Browning. Jim, how you doing?
Fine. How you doing, Mike?
Good. Where were you that day?
I was at home that day. And
now, were you guys together?
Well, we worked together, but we weren't together at the time. I was at home, and he was in the car, and he heard it over the radio. And I got the call home. I lived about 5 blocks from Sharon Kinne. And I went to the scene with Bill and Herman Davis.
And you bought this story, too?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was what happened.
Right.
What kind of a woman was she? What were your impressions of her?
She was always in control. She never shows any remorse.
Did that affect you at all in what you were thinking about this case to any degree?
Oh, yes. She's a very cold person, very, very calm.
But you never said, I think maybe she did it.
Well, no. We questioned her extensively after the other murder case came up.
Okay, but at the time of this first one...
On this first one, we didn't question her too much. Lieutenant Browning, who was at that time, did a lot of the questioning of her after we did the initial investigation of her. Do you recall what she had to say and what you thought about it, Jim?
Well, she had a straight story. She stayed with that story, and we could never get her to change. And that was that the child was in the room with her father, and she said her father, James Kinne, had just cleaned the weapon. she said several times.
That's why the oil was on it.
Yes, and she said several times that he cleaned his weapon quite often. He didn't hunt or anything, but he cleaned it quite often, and she said he was rather careless with the weapon, and he had left it down after he'd cleaned it, and that's how the little girl got a hold of it.
Where was he shot?
He was shot in
the back of the head.
Yeah, right in the back of the head.
So there's no way he was going to be alive to tell anything else.
No, he was shot right in the back of the head. He was facing the wall, laying on his side, and there was a pillow there, and there were powder marks on the pillow indicating that the gun was right on the pillow and shot right into his head.
Okay, did she ever go to trial for this?
Oh, yes.
Later down the road?
She went to trial, and she was convicted and sent to life.
Of this one? Of this first one?
Right, of this one.
And that was the only one?
Well, that was the one she was convicted on.
Yeah.
She got life in the penitentiary.
Okay, what came out in that one then? Did she ever confess to it?
No. I think the closest she ever got to confessing was that we were questioning her one time and doing it extensively, and she said, I'll tell you what you want to know if you let me talk to my minister. And I said, well, who's your minister? And she told me. And some LDS minister in Independence, we summoned him to come. He talked to her, apparently didn't tell her what she wanted to hear. So after he left, she says, it'd be no use in me telling you anything, because she didn't get the satisfaction she got from the minister. So I really thought from that point that she was guilty because she agreed to tell us what we wanted to know if we would let her talk to her minister.
Isn't it something? It seems like we have stories like this now every day.
Yes.
Imagine every day around the country there, I don't know how many of these. But at that time, this was sensational nationwide news.
Yeah, I think you have to think about the time that it occurred, and there was not as many homicides in Kansas City or Kansas are now, so this was a rather high-profile case.
Well, I talked about it here, and your daughter sent me this information.
That's right.
And there's a group that have gotten together to try and get this on unresolved mysteries.
She has prepared this case to send it to Unsolved Mysteries to try to get it.
To see if she still exists. What do you think?
Well, we was talking about that just before we come in here, and I don't know. She went down in Mexico and had some problems down there with the Mexican officials, and I just don't think that you come down there and have a problem with them officials and survive.
So you think she's somewhere in the ground?
I think so.
Okay.
We don't know.
Well, we're going to come back with these police officers and talk some more about this. The thing that got me about it when I brought it up and read some of this material that your daughter sent me was how many people that were listening that day called in here, remembered every detail of this. And then somebody called and said, no, he's got that wrong. It was at 8:30 on a Saturday or something. They remember what was it about that case that grabbed everybody so much?
Well, I think, first of all, it was the fact that the little girl was supposedly responsible for the killing. And then when it came out that she had been dating this other man and his wife came up dead, then it became a very interesting case.
Okay, then there was a car dealer came into this.
That's right.
Was that the next one?
That's the wife of the car dealer.
We're going to come back and go from there.
Okay.
When we come back, the Sharon Kinne case, 1960 and through the whole decade, I guess, till 1969.
69 is the last time that she was heard from.
That's a long time to be involved with the. You guys still think about this from time to time?
Yes, sure.
Surely.
We'll be back here, 576. What do you remember about this, folks? 576-7681 is our number here on Talk Radio 810. I'd like to get some calls going and talk about this internationally known case, I guess it was.
It was all over. It was all over.
We'll be back here on Talk Radio, 576-7681. 18 minutes after 10 on Talk Radio. Go back 35 years. Colonel William Morton, investigating officers William Morton, Merriam Chief of Police Jim Browning, Captain Carl Foster. Carl, where were you?
At that time, I was a road sergeant, patrol sergeant.
This grabbed you pretty good like these guys, too, huh?
Oh, yes.
Our number here is 576-7681. Now let's go down the road here. She kills her husband.
Right.
Now what's she do next?
Well, 69 days later, she's involved in another case. It's the Patricia Jones case. And we noticed she was involved in that because witnesses told us that she was involved, and she discovered the body with one of her boyfriends. Her boyfriend turned it in to us, and she was with him when they discovered the body. So we knew she was involved in that. And Jim was doing a lot of interrogation on that, so you can talk about that.
What about that one, Jim?
Well, the way it came about was that Sharon Kinne started dating Walt Jones, who was a car salesman. And she started dating him after her husband was killed.
Did she ever get that insurance? Had she got the insurance money at that time?
Yes, she did. She bought a Thunderbird from Walt Jones.
And she had the money?
Yes.
How much was that?
Well, there's varying amounts, but it was somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000.
Not that much.
But back then it might have been a little more.
So she wanted to buy a car.
She did buy a car from Walt Jones.
Thunderbird.
Uh-huh. And then she started having an affair with Walt.
Yeah.
And then she told Walt that she wanted him to leave his wife and marry her. And Walt said he wouldn't do it. So then she called Walt's wife, Patricia Jones, on the phone and asked her to have a meeting so she could tell her about an affair that her sister, Sharon Kinne's sister, was having with Walt Jones. And so they met at 24 Highway in Liberty in Independence, Missouri. There used to be an antique store on the north side of the highway there. And she got in the car with Patricia Jones, and that's the last that we saw of her, alive.
Patricia Jones?
Patricia Jones, yes.
What happened to her?
Well, eventually, Sharon Kinne talked to her boyfriend, one of her boyfriends, John Boldus, and told him that she was afraid that something had happened to Patricia Jones because Walt Jones had called her when Patricia didn't come home, called Kinne. And so she got John Boldus to drive around and look for Patricia, and eventually they wound up in this secluded parking area where her and Boldus used to park all the time, and they found the body.
And she had shot her?
Yes, that's what we say she did. And then Boldus was going to go call the police, but she told him not to tell the police that she was with him.
Okay, what'd she do next?
Well, after that, you mean as far as...
How many did she kill?
She killed three. She killed three eventually between 1960 and 1964. And she wounded another one. And she destroyed several families.
This is a mean woman here.
She's mean, yes.
I used to call her the pistol-packing mama.
What kind of guns? What she had?
She used to have high-standard target guns is what she had. Most of the guns she was involved with.
Okay, now she goes to trial for the second murder then.
She goes to trial for her husband. And in 3 days she was convicted. First of all, she went to trial.
Okay, she never went to trial for the second.
She went to trial for the Patricia Jones. And there was problems with that case. We didn't have a weapon. We didn't have any fingerprints. And we had a problem with the testimony. The ballistics didn't match. From one of the witnesses said he owned the gun. He fired it into a tree, and Jim and them went out to the tree, recovered some of the bullets. They didn't match the ones that would come in Patricia Jones. So the jury acquitted her on that case.
Okay, but now you know she did the first one. So that's where you went.
Right. Then they filed against the husband. She was arrested for both cases at the same time, and then went to trial first on Patricia Jones, found not guilty. Then they went to first trial on the husband, and after 3 days of testimony, the jury found her guilty, sentenced her to life to penitentiary. So she goes to penitentiary. She's down there 18 months, and the Supreme Court, her lawyer had filed an appeal, and the Supreme Court ruled that the jury was improperly impaneled and that she got a new trial. So she got out on appeal bond.
So now she's out?
She's out. Okay.
Okay, now what does she do?
Well, she meets another man. I think his name was Puglisi.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
And they get married. And they decide to go to Mexico.
Mr. Puglisi decides to marry this woman. Huh?
Yeah, well, they made a marriage contract. I don't think
license.
I don't think that he had the right information, or he wouldn't have done that.
Well, he had to know about this stuff.
Well, maybe he didn't read the papers.
Yeah,
you know. But anyway, they decide to take a trip to Mexico because things are getting real bad for Sharon, and she needs a little rest. So they go to Mexico.
She needs to rest up so she can do some more.
Between killings.
Yeah. So they go to Mexico, and they travel to a town in Mexico. I don't recall the name of it. And they get a motel called the Hotel Gin. And they
sounds wonderful.
They decided to pick that because it was kind of a clever name.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sharon is sick, and she decides that she needs to go. Well, let me back up. In the meantime, Sharon buys a gun. She doesn't have a gun, so she had to buy one. She bought a gun in Mexico. And then she decides that she's sick and needs to go get some medicine. So she leaves and eventually meets this other man in a bar, and they go to his motel room, And for
this isn't Mr. Puglisi.
No, he's back in the...
He's back.
He's in Hotel Gin.
Having some gin.
That's right.
So she gets this other guy.
That's right. And they go to his room, and of course the stories vary. The Mexican police say it was a robbery, and she said it was self-defense, but she shot him twice in the heart and killed him. And the motel clerk heard it, and he came out, and she shot him, wounded him, and he was able to take the gun away from her and hold her till the police got there.
After he'd been shot.
Yeah.
So now what happens to her?
So the Mexican police put her in jail.
So she's in the Mexican jail now.
Yes.
5 years she was in there.
She's in there 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You ever seen a Mexican slammer?
No, and I wouldn't want to.
No. Once you go in, you never come out.
That's right.
And they don't have any roofs on them either, I guess.
And they don't particularly care about the Fifth Amendment or anything like that.
No, but how did she get out then?
Well, she went through a trial there. And they sentenced her to 10 years for the murder. And then somehow it was appealed, or it went to another judge, and he decided she didn't have enough time, so he added 3 years onto her sentence. And then she stayed in the penitentiary until 1969, when she escaped from the Mexican.
How'd she get out?
I don't know. We don't know whether it was an inside job or what.
One day she's not there.
She's not there. There was a story out that she had a confrontation with some of the jailers down there, and they thought that maybe the jailers done her in. But there's really nothing come out of there about where she's at, or
but never a trace.
69. No trace.
Not a trace of her. 5767681. This is a story that went everywhere, Europe, and here's an old crime detective magazine. It was in the Saturday Evening Post. 3 murder charges. Here's Sharon, but Sharon says, I'm just an ordinary girl. The Star Magazine did a story. What is this? The Official Detective. Remember these? Police Gazette and all these things?
Yes.
And when we had a murder in this country, that was big news, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
We'll be back here. What do you folks remember about this? 576-7681 is our number. Sharon Kinne. And we'll be back here on Talk Radio 810 KCMO.
Don't you wish some things were guaranteed to take 29 minutes or less, like writing a novel?
It was a morning like any other for Private Eye. When in walked Trouble, she wore patent leather pumps, fishnet hose, a lab coat, and a 10-gallon Stetson. This thing was all business. I poured us both a root beer, and then she spilled her guts.
But there is one thing guaranteed to take 29 minutes or less. A Mr. Goodwrench Quick Lube Plus oil change, or you'll get the next one free.
And then I solved the crime, caught the bad guy, saved the city, didn't get the day, and got paid, went home, and went to bed. The end.
Call 1-800-GM. Use us today for the GM dealer near you, and use us for a change. See dealer for details regarding guarantee.
It's hard to believe, but once again, Christmas is right around the corner. By the way, did you think about giving Hooked on Phonics as a gift last year? Do you wish you had? Remember, poor reading skills won't improve without help. Maybe this year should be a Hooked on Phonics Christmas. Hooked on Phonics, the gift that remains.
Money on here. Let's talk about anything you want to do. Food, or napkins, or the insane. Connie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning.
Hi, I've got 2 comments for Dr. Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
One, I was apprehensive about trying your restaurant because I thought, man, this is such a classy guy. His restaurant will probably be so expensive the family can't afford it.
Yeah.
And one day we were in another restaurant in the area where he is, and it was like almost $7 for a hamburger. And the waitress got indignant with me when I asked if I could substitute something. So we just got up and left. And I said, well, let's try Dr. Davis's restaurant.
Yeah.
And I mean, the food was great. The meat's so lean.
This is ounce for ounce, I think, one of the finest restaurants in the Midwest, if not the United States.
My kids loved it, so then when my grandma came up, we took her there.
What grandma said?
Oh, she loved it. So every time we say, where would you like to go? She said, I want to go to Dr. Davis.
Oh, there's nothing better, I tell you.
And, you know, the thing that impressed me almost as much as the food is the waitresses and waiters.
What kind of years?
They don't hover over you, but they don't... You know, they don't, as soon as you set your plate down, go, how is everything?
Yeah.
Well, you don't know.
The only thing you never want to do in one of Doc's places is ask the waitress if she has frog legs. Because she'll say, no, it's rheumatism makes me walk like this.
But, you know, the prices are great, and, you know, you're so full that you can't usually, I don't have room for dessert, so we have to take it with us.
Well, there ought to be something done, a television special or something. As I said earlier, somehow Doc's places have been poo-pooed by somebody, and I don't know why. Thanks for your call,
Can I ask one more thing?
Oh, no. Wait a minute. What is it?
Well, you know, you were talking about society, and I wonder, when are we going to change to where the good people are rewarded? Because it seems like the drug addicts and the criminals and all these people get the publicity.
They get all the press.
And, you know, when are we, and even our welfare system encourages you not to excel. So when are we going to change and reward the good people?
Well, let's see if we can find out about that. There's a guy in Connecticut that started a paper. And I saw him on with Pat Buchanan and some guys on something the other night. And all he does is good news. All he writes about is somebody who does,
Isn't that wonderful?
Good thing. Nobody wants to read about that. Nobody cares. Because what is it that incites in us? We want to hear the grim.
Well, I think that partly it's defensive. I mean, you're kind of alert to, you know, everybody has an animal part to them, a protective thing. And if something's going to go wrong out there, you want to know it so you can protect yourself. But, I've thought of the same thing for years, and I didn't read that. I'm delighted somebody has actually tried that. Could you imagine in this community right here, if we had someone put out a publication about all the good things that happen, I mean, current news, why, you could fill up 28 pages. There are great things happen in Kansas City. You never hear about them.
Yeah. Of course, we all have that dark side to a degree. Don't we all have something in us?
You better believe it.
And when you hear about somebody that does some dastardly thing, you say, well, you know, I thought about that myself. I wouldn't do it, but I thought about it.
Yeah, there's always a fine line between good and bad, because we all have